Everyone. It's so nice to meet you all. My name is Miranda Alfano-Smith, and I'm the Program Associate at Enactus USA. I'm so excited to be moderating this panel today and sharing this space with you all. The purpose of our conversation today is to empower you all to see mental health as essential to personal well-being, professional success, and meaningful impact. We hope that this conversation normalizes the many aspects of being a young entrepreneur, from the emotional fatigue you may feel to knowing it's okay to seek support to reiterating the fact that you are in a community that can relate to what you are experiencing. I first want to start by introducing our amazing panelists, Etornam Tsyawo, Ericka Núñez, and Anand Macherla, all of whom are fellows with the Resolution Project. Going into how this session will look today, we will start off the conversation with some questions for our panelists and then move into a Q&A session where you all can ask any questions you have that may have come up during our conversation. If you do have any questions, please directly message Somali with both the question and whether or not you would like the space to unmute and ask the question yourself, or you would rather remain anonymous and I can ask the question for you. Before we dive into our conversation, I really want us to take a moment to take stock of how we are feeling going into this session. Looking at the feelings wheel, that will be shared in the chat. Um, what feeling resonates the most with you right now? Thank you, Anand. Um, I want to give you a moment to look over this. Once you have your feeling picked, please put your response into the Mentimeter that's in the link in the chat as well. We're going to give you like a second or two just to kind of take stock of where you are at right now with this morning, this afternoon, depending on where you are this evening, and then we will get started. The sleepy makes me giggle. It's 8 a.m. here, so I'm still letting my coffee kick in. So I do feel that on a personal note. We got some excited, um, content, peaceful. I think on my end, I'm also seeing excited as a big one, trusting. I have it also up on my screen too, and I think it's updating too. So maybe refresh. 14 responses, yes. Content, surprised. Oh, I'm curious about the surprised. Um, thankful, energetic. Love that. Okay. Thank you all for taking the time to check in with yourself. I know sometimes in busy weeks and moments, it's a Wednesday, it's hard to take the time to just think about where you yourself are at. And so hopefully this not only gets you ready for this panel today, but also allows you to just take stock of where you're feeling wherever you are at your point in the day today. Amazing. Okay, we are going to dive straight into our questions today. Starting off with a question for Eternam. What does mental wellness mean to you? And how has your relationship with mental wellness changed over time as you've grown in your own leadership journey?
Thank you very much for the question and for the opportunity. As a side note, before I answer the question, I'm going to turn off my video because I had explained something previously. So thank you very much. Okay, so what exactly mental health means to me? Well, mental health to me means that I am well mentally. I know it's kind of creepy, but I want to rather focus more on the second aspects of the question. which is that at first, I didn't even know what mental health was, whether it even existed, until I personally had some episodes that made me ask if this is what mental health was all about, because there was awareness and all those things, like the celebration of Mental Health Awareness Month. We used to have those programs, but I didn't know what it was personally until I had some episodes which made me ask if this is what mental health was really. Now, after the first episode to right now, as I'm speaking, I have grown to appreciate the power of being mentally healthy. Because not being mentally healthy has personally affected me in ways that I never would have imagined. It affected my productivity, my energy level, and even my physical health. I remember that there was this moment where I had a situation, and every morning I would just cry. Most of the time I was crying. I didn't know what to do. And if I try sharing with people, before I could even finish, they just tell me, oh, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. But the day ends and I realized that no, I wasn't fine. This was not malaria or cholera or something where like everybody, like fever, if someone touches you, your temperature is high, it wasn't that kind of a situation. So days will pass. I know that yes, at the end of the day, I will be fine. Like later, provided I don't do anything stupid, I will be fine. But in the short term, telling me I will be fine didn't really help things. So the danger about it is that most people will not be able to understand you, even if you try to explain it. That is the main thing here. So being mentally healthy over the years has become an absolute priority for me, because I know that it affects my physical health, it affects my productivity, it affects my mood. And with this realization, I also know that I am the main person and probably the only person responsible for this health. Thank you. I hope I've answered the question.
No, thank you for sharing and for being willing to share a little bit more about your own personal experience with that. Um, Going into this idea of it affecting your work, Anand, when you are reflecting back on launching your own social enterprise, what surprised you the most about the emotional or psychological demands that you were experiencing during that time?
Yeah. First off, thank you so much for having me. My name is Anand. For context, my venture project with Resolution Project was the Refugee Youth Film Festival. Ericka, I don't know if I ever told you this, but it was class 10. I became a fellow in Panama during like World Month there. So when we were launching this, I think the big reflection that I had was um, how like consistency, like mental health to me also meant like consistency of health. And granted, I was much younger at the time. I didn't have the same health issues that I have now, and so my understanding of this has also changed a little bit. But what caught me off guard when I was doing the Refugee Youth Film Festival was how my ability to show up on different days would affect how other people would feel about trusting me, right? So much of my project was about earning and building trust with communities who I didn't always like share the same language with. And more so, this was also during a time during COVID, which was really challenging. And so um, I think that if there's something that I would want to emphasize during this hour, it would be that like mental health is not something that we just have like figured out and then we're good, right? It's like something that we show up to every day and exercise. And just like, we try and take care of our bodies, that I think we should also be taking care of our, minds in the same way. And that also includes like emotional and psychological and all that. So it's no longer done. But I think the surprise for me was how drastically it would affect how other people showed up to me, right? How like my ability to like build trust with folks was a big part of, you know, my mental health and well-being.
Thank you, Anand. Yeah, this pressure to show up and always be on or be able to be like a person for a situation is really hard. Ericka, how have you managed the pressure to always be on or always be achieving, especially when working in high impact spaces like social entrepreneurship? And how do you rest and recharge to protect your mental health during those times?
Thank you, Miranda, and well, good morning or afternoon, whether you guys are right now. This is a very great question, especially because that pressure to always being on has given me this week, yesterday, this point of inflection, like where just the stress is just so much. I'm actually speaking from from the work, so you can understand that like many things are happening right now. But certainly, I will start saying that will happen, and it's pretty normal and more when probably all of us are here. We are dedicating ourselves not only to studies or work, but also developing purpose throughout all of our initiative phases as social entrepreneurs. So it could certainly bring you to those moments of just exploding or trying to managing that pressure. But what is the success of managing that pressures or just recharging yourself? I would say prioritizing balance in your life. And that for different people could mean different things, but it ends being prioritizing mental health. How? I will share a little bit of what happened yesterday. For example, I had to speak it out to my best friend, who currently is my mom, and those who live far from their family could understand that. So just speaking out what all those things that were frustrating me, taking a hot bath and relax, and also dinner with my best friends and just chit chatting and eating, just changing the environment, we could recharge ourselves to continue all of our responsibility. So I'll say balance in life. It's necessary to take a breath and stay with the one that you love, and even though your schedule is super full, making time to those moments. Why? Because you become more effective keeping yourself in motion, in healthy motion to just continue. So we have to remember that um, we just have to try to that balance, and that is okay to feel stress or to have those moments. And at the end, if you make time to be in peace with yourself and your doings, you will truly benefit your people, projects, impact, family and friends, and the more important, you.
Thank you so much for sharing. My mom is also my best friend. So I definitely relate to have long calls with her every day to check in and check myself too. Um, you know, people and like the people in your life are really beneficial and a focal point to strength and like wellness. Etornam, what community supports have helped you in moments of isolation?
Yes, so first have been my family. I would say specific people in my family. Well, it's good news that Miranda, you have your mom to be your best friend. Well, in Africa, the dynamics is kind of different. You know, your mom loves you so much, but they never say it. They never really show it. But yeah, that's just by the way. My husband has been a very great support from the time I launched my venture. And like in everything I want to do, he is just there. And aside him, I also have my sister. So these are the two family members that when the overwhelm is just too much and no one ever seems to understand me, I just run to them because they will listen without judging, without talking, nothing. Even if it's just a listening ear, if they have anything to say, they say it. Otherwise, They are just the two main people that I reach out to. So if there are family members, that is great. Secondly, have been my friends, not all of them, but I would say two. After graduating from undergrad, I formed this group I called Elegance. We are three ladies, and I call it Friendship with Purpose. I formed this group to be like a support group. Like after school, we know that over the years, friends forget about each other, all those things. So I formed this group. We support each other in terms of career, in terms of finances, in terms of personal life. So we have monthly meetings every Sunday, the first Sunday of every month. We meet an hour, we chat, we laugh. If there's nothing to talk about, we just talk about fun stuffs. And this group has really helped with a situation that I faced quite recently that I am coming out of. I cannot imagine if they were not there. They really helped me through that situation. So I would say trusted friends. Yeah. Then thirdly has been my mentors. I do have different mentors, but for the purposes of this discussion, I want to give a very big shout out to Peter Ogwin and Victoria Rao. It got to a point I had to fold my original venture, which is Agricare. And those who are wondering why I'm still a resolution fellow, it's a long story, which I'm sure will be for another session. Yeah, they were there. They were there. They saw what we were doing. They saw that no matter what we did, no matter where we turned, it's like things were simply not going into our favor. And I personally broke down at one point due to this situation, and they were really there to support. So the resolution mentors have been very great in my mental health journey. And then finally, this one is no more like a community support, but I would say reconnecting with your spiritual self. And this has nothing to do with religion. I believe that we all have that other side of us, which is spiritual and has nothing to do with religion. Even if it's admiring your work, appreciating who you are, taking deep breaths, smiling at, the little things. And if you're religious, I would say reading some holy texts or singing hymns, or, just giving yourself a real break. These were the things that worked for me. Like they seem very simple, but they really helped me pull through the situation. So yeah, I would say these are the four main resources that I tend to in those difficult times.
Thank you so much for sharing. Two things I heard that were big were community and mentorship. So Anand, what role has community or mentorship or community and mentorship played in supporting your mental health as a leader?
Yeah, I'm like wrestling with this right now too. In a lot of ways. I think that so the work I do now is called entrepreneurial ecosystem building. So how do we help create structures to enable more people into entrepreneurship? And in doing this work, what I've learned is that like it's not just our ability to start companies, but it's the whole support of an individual, right? Like an individual is not able to go start and solve the issues of the world unless they themselves are able to be like taken care of in a way. And so I'm wrestling with this, like, what is the role of community? I think that like for those of us that live in Western countries, oftentimes, and like with this, idea of capitalism, and we've just led very individualized lives, and so when we are not able to handle our own challenges, we think that we are deficient. And what I'm really trying to press is that like these are things that for time immemorial human societies have taken care of each other. It's not been like, hey, I'm going to feed myself, I'm going to take care of myself, I'm going to, do all the finances, I'm going to do all the work, I'm going to do all the cooking, I'm going to do all the cleaning. Like these are things that generally were shared in community, and responsibilities were shared in community. And I think that like there's an aspect of mental health that also relates to that. At the same time, there's a level and there's like a certain point to which, you know, it can't just be cast on other people, right? Like no one is ultimately going to be able to solve my mental health issues. They're like, no matter, I think for the longest time, with my experience with health and disability too, I was trying so very hard to communicate my feelings to other people, hoping that they would like understand it and really, really resonate. And after years of doing that, um, it's impossible, right? Like people will seek to understand, but they will not fully do so, and that is totally okay. I don't think the point of sharing our mental health struggles with one another is to, you know, have like one single person lift us out of it by themselves. I think it's yeah, so I think it's, you know, being generous and drawing like boundaries around the locus of control. No, like, you know, I want to talk to my mom and, you know, she will offer me really good advice. And there's a certain point to where I'm just burdening her at times of like, you know, bringing the same thing to her. And she'll be like, yeah, but like, you know, this is your life. Like you do have to live with the consequences and the decisions. And you know, I think like shifting that perspective of how community can be of help with mental health was, I think, like a big moment for me, and it's still something that I'm like wrestling with now. Um, I think the like aspect of mentorship kind of goes along to the same lines of, you know, the intergenerational wisdom, like wisdom from folks who are a little bit older than us, who have had different experiences than us. They'll be able to shed light on how they've navigated through these struggles, but also they're not going to be able to solve the thing for us either. It's really like how we show up to ourselves and like the daily practices that we have, whether it's, you know, going to a community, like a spiritual community or religious community of some sort, to get a sense of belonging and understand like the behaviors that we want to emulate. And so I think, yeah, going back to the question, I think it's something that I'm still actively wrestling with. Earlier this week, I realized how much of my challenges with school and with work and why I have the opinions I do with community and ecosystem building, a lot of that just comes from my feeling of like my lack of belonging in very traditional and conventional structured spaces. And those have also led to a lot of challenges in my relationships with my family, with my partner, with, you know, with my friends. And so yeah, I'm actively wrestling with this, like, you know, community component, because I think that community is integral. It's absolutely a necessary component that we have super neglected in like the Western individualized societies. And there does need to be some sort of like boundary around like who actually can, you know, no one's coming to save us, right? We have to take agency and control in our health. Someone else can't exercise on our behalf. Other people can't take medicine and expect that we get better because they took the medicine, right? It's like, no, we got to show up. We got to do the exercises. Um, and so maybe we do it together. Maybe we do it in community. That way, like other folks can also learn from us and we can learn from them and so on and so forth. Does that answer your
No,
question? Or yeah, feel free to push back if I'm
no, I think also one thing I just wanted to highlight is the fact that like what you need changes as you get older too.
yeah.
Like there's never one fix for mental health and wellness. Like what you're experiencing as a student and like someone who's starting their venture is very different than what you're going to be experiencing 5 years down the line in a
Right.
completely different situation. Kind of
Right.
going off of this, like we've all been students. Some of us are still students right now. And like, especially with school and everything, it is a struggle to go through all of this. Ericka, what advice would you give to students who are feeling pulled in a million directions and struggling to stay grounded while pursuing their purpose?
No, thank you for this question and actually for the reflections that you guys has just shared. I mean, I completely agree with Anand in the fact that we can express ourselves out loud and we sometimes need it, but at the end, yeah, the mental health depends on us. So I totally agree with that. And well, I'll say, although it probably is weird, I'll say congratulations. Because feeling uncomfortable just means that you are out of your comfort zone and you are growing. So congratulations, because you are doing something, and just being here as fellow, as community, or an active member means that you are doing great things as well. So congratulations. I will say second that it's okay to feel like that again, no matter in what stage of your life you are, no matter what has been pulling you harder in those millions of directions that you could experience right now. This timing just mean that it's time for internal retrospective. And that's why I agree with Anand with that part of his reflection, because it's time to do a thorough and sincere reflection of your doings, your motive, and what are those things that fuel your purposes. Because at the end, we move by emotions and purpose. So because no matter what you decide to do, as long as you fulfill you as person, just understanding yourself, your motive, your purpose, in other words, the end or goal will make you happy. Although it seems very holistic, at the end, just feeling good and in peace with ourselves is being happy. It's finding those purpose in life. And when you are pursuing those positive and from the love things, the war will conspire to your favor. So focus on hearing that internal voice that you have, that it's always reminding you what is good to do or not. And as a believer in God, and I will connect it a little bit with um, the Etornam, sorry, a conversation. It's spirituality. That little internal voice, it just I believe that it just got telling me like, oh, you have to go in that way, or no, 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 that is not the way. Don't go in that way. So just try. It doesn't matter. No matter what you decide to prioritize or pursue in all of those strings, you will do fine, and everything will happen as it is supposed to be, as long as you feel in peace and you hear your internal voice. Life, it's just your personal book and your personal movie where you write the story of your personal life and your venture focus. So just do what gives you peace in all the sense. That's what I will tell you right now.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Erica. I think tying this back to ourselves and like just staying true to ourselves, something that many people struggle with as they are progressing and creating ventures is this idea of imposter syndrome. And so at Turnam, what does imposter syndrome mean to you? Does your understanding of it change depending on your audience? For example, when you're around funders versus stakeholders versus your own peers?
Sure. I hope I don't talk too much because I've become very passionate about this question. You know, feelings of inadequacy, incompetence, what if this, what if that? I've fallen prey to this a number of times, and I know that it has become like a normal thing for many people. But thankfully, I would say that's not anymore for me. Whether it's funders, peers, presidents, like whoever, now I ask myself 3 questions about the opportunity or whatever it is that I'm going for, which, may want to bring these feelings of incompetence. First, do I really want this? Is this something I want? Second, is this something that is really worth my time? And then, of course, do I qualify for it? Now, with this third one, it's kind of tricky. Whether it's a business piece, scholarship, maybe a speaking opportunity, whatever. If it is yes, straight away, personally, I just focus on preparing for it. Because if I start, what if this, what if that, that is what starts bringing the doubts, the inadequacy, and all of that. So I try as much as possible to just suppress those negative forms of what if, because that's what really induces the self-doubt. Now, what if I remember there was this application I was making, the thought just came, what if my profile picture was not nice? I was like, for real? What if my profile picture was really the nicest? So I just tried to change it. So if the negative what if tries to come, then I try to change it the other way. What if I don't get it? Okay, what if I actually become the best at the end of the day? So that really kind of gives me some confidence. It really boosts my confidence. And it has saved me a lot of stress. Stress. So if I apply for an opportunity and it doesn't go through, I don't even flinch because I believe that I have put in all my efforts. I have asked the right questions. I tried as much as possible to follow what the requirements are. Just last week, one happened. I made an application to Boston Consulting Group some time ago, and it just came out that, okay, they didn't pick me. I was like, okay, well, it means this is not for me. I mean, it's not for me. Besides, there are other opportunities. And for that same last week, I made a scholarship application last year, which I had even forgotten about. And it came out that I won. That was $100,000 for my research, which is really cool. I was like, oh, this is for me, So when it comes out positive, I'm happy. If it doesn't come out positive, I'm like, okay, this is not for me, especially after I've put in my effort. So before coming to this realization, I realized that imposter syndrome has kind of robbed me from certain opportunities that I could have taken, right? But with this mind shift, it has really put me on a stage where I see myself differently, because now I believe that whatever it is, whoever I'm facing, I mean, they have outlined certain things and other people are applying. So if others are going in for it, then I'm pretty sure that I also qualify for what this opportunity. So that is how I see it now. And right now, if I hear about imposter syndrome, I'm like, well, what's that? Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I love this idea of reframing. I think it's so easy to get into a certain mindset, especially when things are challenging or tough, and it's really, really easy to just focus on like the potential negatives. Um, and I'm going to start reframing my thoughts because I think that is a really, really cool thing to think about. Um, we have one more question for our panelists from us, and this one goes to Anand and Erica. Um, how do you navigate your venture through turbulent socio-political times? Erica, I'm going to have you go first. Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations, Etornam. So excited for you. So thank you for these questions. Actually, our venture is called Prendelo. It's almost a foundation. We're in that process. We have been trying to be a formally foundation, and I could answer this question, telling you a little bit of our story and how we are almost 6 years impacting life of the students, of vulnerable students in city inner areas of Panama. That is our country, the headquarter, and how we could start expansion to El Salvador. So Prendelo, it's a project that maximizes the individual's effective learning by utilizing the neurolinguistic programming theory in students of mathematics and languages. The learning methodology that applies, is applied with well-being and emotional intelligence as a part of our successful intervention. So our message will transmit resilience that comes from a united group of co-founders, because I'm not the only one. We are a group of co-founders that we have been together these 7 years, and a teamwork that believe in the idea. So our success that we can continue being alive, it's because there are people that has been volunteers and that have believed in our idea, in our purpose. And that is only possible when you know that adaptability is essential for the purpose behind the initiative and the social venture itself. So, we had pandemic hitting us in our initial days, and that forced us to adapt and change. That's the reason I'm telling this. It's that our methodologies, so we were able to continue impacting education, being Panama, one of the countries that has most days with classrooms closed in all the world during pandemic, and especially right now that in the last 5 years during pandemic, there has been interrupted classes for many social, economic, and political reasons in Panama. So even though right now we are preparing ourselves to this year intervention and with a special attention, why? Because we are living time of those changes and turbulent social political times. There are a lot of protests and paralyzation in formal education in Panama. So the thing is that many adult things happen, but the ones that are still suffering the consequences are the children. The students itself are always affected. So adaptability and taking advantage of the technology as a resource in your favor and not against you, just as the virtual complementary education that we are providing, view this context is vital. Again, being out of your comfort zone just means that you're doing great. And if you learn to enjoy being out of your comfort zone, you will become unstoppable. So I could finish this saying that adaptability is essential, and those are things that you will always have to encounter in your life during your different phases as person, as we were discussing, but also as a social venture entrepreneurs.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
I'd,
Anand, yeah, please.
I'd echo the adaptability portion for sure. I would add to it that, I think that when things are turbulent, I think a lot of social entrepreneurs do this anyway, but they see turbulence as an advantage in that, like when things are changing so quickly, it can also highlight other spaces in which like we could do our work better or we can do our work more leanly and actually makes us like stand out. And there's a book by Nassim Taleb called Anti-Fragile, where he talks about this of like using fragility as a lever for rather than trying to like reset an organization to what the baseline was, actually using chaos and turbulence to make that organization even better, like kind of like how our bodies do it, right? Like we go and exercise, we put our muscles under stress and duress, and then we actually those muscles actually grow more. The other thing I would add, and kind of tying into Etornam's example earlier, in moments of turbulence, I think it's especially important to um, have a better understanding of what success looks like. So rather than, hey, success is that my organization is still able to expand and grow and do all these things, rather than it being like outcomes based, right? Saying that like, hey, Etornam would have only been happy if she had gotten that job at BCG, right? Being like, well, regardless of whether she got that job, she still put in an application. And if she's happy with that application, then like that's where we tie success, right? It's like the process versus the outcome. And I think that is also like, something good to remember during turbulent times, of like, we can't control the world. There's so many things that are going on and so many variables at play, that any small thing could lead to our success, or it could also lead to like the failure of the organization. Therefore, rather than tying it on the outcome, if we tie it on the process, if we tie our contentment and our like, our mental well-being on the process, then like I think that's a better outlook. And then we're able to like draw the more appropriate lessons from that. Plus, I think down the line too, as we get older in our careers, people are going to be more attuned to us like pulling the right lessons from our experiences rather than just saying like, oh yeah, this company made it, or this like venture made it, or it didn't make it, whatever. Yeah, those are just a few quick ideas more broadly.
Amazing. Thank you. We have two questions in the chat, and this is a good segue into our Q&A session for you all. So first of all, thank you all thank you three for taking the time to answer those questions. I feel like I've learned a lot and I'm leaving with a lot of things to think about, and I'm excited to hear your answers to the other questions. For those who have already put questions in the chat, um, you are welcome to unmute yourself and ask. We're going to start um, with, I'm going to, please correct me if I say your name wrong, Lungello. Um, and if you do not feel comfortable asking your question and they do come up, you have more questions that come up, please message Somali and she can send me those questions as well. But our first question, Mungela, do you want to go and ask it or do you want me to read it out loud? If you don't, I can just read it for you. Awesome. Okay, so this question is for Etornam. Um, how do you feel people can unleash that divine spark you said is within each and every one of us without going through some really through some really hard situations that are brought by providence and then leveraging that with making money?
Well, I saw the question and I read it and I was just thinking over and over again. Lungelo, the truth is there is no playbook. If I tell you there is a playbook, I would be deceiving you. But this is what I did over the years. The saying that follow your dreams, I actually did that literally. I remember after undergrad, I actually chose my undergrad because I wanted to preserve taro leaves. Taro leaf is one of the vegetables that I like so much, and that passion actually was from an argument I had with my mom, where she asked me a question, and the question really hit me. I was like, wow, this is it. So I just followed through. Can you imagine that I went to first year and every single course that I took, at the end of class, I just asked myself, okay, so with this course, what we've learned today, how can I use that knowledge to preserve taro leaf? Like I became mad, literally. It got to a point I was so consumed. I was like, am I even a normal human being again? If I say every class, I mean every single class. I did chemical engineering, so I took calculus class. I even took English class. So after English class, I asked myself, what we've learned today, how is it going to help me preserve taro leaves? So I just followed through that. And the dream changed, with time, it changed up to today. After undergrad, I started my venture. A lot of people actually expected that top students, the next thing is to fly outside of the country and do a straight PhD. But here I was trying to start a venture, a food processing, which was not even going on well. In fact, you'll be walking around, people see you and you're like, what? Are you still here? What are you doing here? I remember someone saw me, I was like, wow, when are you flying? I was like, am I a bird? I had so many situations, like I had really devastating encounters with people just because I chose that path. But Lungelo, back to your question, I feel like that was what gave me, I feel like that was the divine spark. I don't know, because that's what has brought me to where I am right now. My venture has literally metamorphosed over the years, but where I am now, I feel very grateful and peaceful. And if I had to go back and start all over again, will I choose this path? Yes, it's the same path I would choose. So I hope I have attempted your question. Okay.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We do have another question. We have about 5 minutes left, and this is actually for all three of you. So, um, how do each of you find satisfaction with a never-ending list of to-dos? What activities and rituals do you do to achieve rest? I am just going to read off the names in order. So, Erica, if you would mind answering first, then Anand, then Etornam, that would be fantastic.
Sounds great. Thank you for the question, and I will answer just with something that seems to be minimal or silly, but it's something that just speaking about mental health will actually make a difference, and it is just doing exercise. It's amazingly all the beneficials that exercising do give you as person, not emotionally, not only in your chemistry in your body, but also your physical, your emotional. How do you feel? How do you see yourself? So personally, I truly do exercise. It just relieves the stress, and it's something that makes me be even with more energy each day with all the things that are at the same time. Surprisingly, when I don't do exercise, I feel more tired than when doing exercise. So I'll do exercising, and of course, there are areas where you need other type of treatment and all of those things, but exercising truly it's the best um, uh, benefit that you can have for just achieving that this stress and avoiding even taking pills sometimes. So exercising, I'll say.
Yeah, Brendan, this is a great question. I'm typing a longer response in the chat just so folks can pull that away if they need. But high level, I'd say on the point of rest, my roommate's Jewish. We practice Shabbat weekly, and Shabbat's like essentially, it's taking a day of Sabbath, of like taking a day of rest, and turning that into a ritual. And so being very intentional about stepping away from the work week and saying like, I am putting things down. I'm here just to be with others rather than like we're human beings first, not human doings. And so just like, let's just be with one another. That's been really helpful to do that more weekly. And I think that ties back into this like undercurrent of divinity that Ericka and Etornam are also talking to. Second, I would go back to the outcomes versus process. If all my actions today are conditional to a certain outcome in the future, then I'm going to be miserable when those things don't happen. It's also like I'm just like sending myself through misery now, right? But small moments of joy, small acts of joy daily. And so I try to focus on like the process. And then the last thing, satisfaction more broadly. I am kind of stubborn and I don't find that I can do well in spaces that I don't personally feel passionate about. I've done my stint in corporate America and I hated it. Like it just gave me no satisfaction because I could leave for 3 weeks and my lack of being there didn't really matter. And so I switched to something that I found is more urgently needed. It's a global priority. And like I get a lot of satisfaction knowing that what I am doing is like important. Unfortunately, because I feel so passionately about it, when things don't go my way, I get rocked hard, right? And so like that is challenging for sure. And it's again another point to like mental health and well-being it's a verb, it's an act, it's not something that you get to, it's not a place that you arrive at, it's a constant process.
Yeah, and I very much agree with Ericka and Anand, and those have really worked for me as well, especially focusing on the process and my efforts. To add to how to take rest and the never-ending to-do list, I would say that you should try and take an actual break. This sounds lame, but it has worked for me. Taking an actual break means you are taking an actual break from work, from, excessive thinking, from, anything that gives you stress. It's very important because if you break down, you would not be able to do all those things that you wanted to do. And the thing is, ask yourself, if you have this long list of activities that never end, if you take a day or two break, will it lead to someone dying? Will it destroy your business? In fact, will the company burn down? Usually, no. Yeah, so if none of those is happening, then I'm definitely taking the break. I have done this severally. In fact, I remember one time my supervisor during my master's was like, we have to publish this paper. I was on a break. I took a 2 weeks break and I just shut off everything. And when I came back from the break, I felt really good. So please do take a break. The to-do list, you can actually do most of them later, and a day or two's break will not really cause any problem. Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing. I think I needed that reminder to take breaks because I'm notorious for just pushing through. Looking at the time, we have 4 minutes left of this call today. So apologies if we did not get to your question, but I just wanted to thank everyone again for sending in your questions, for joining us today, and a specific and even bigger thank you to our panelists for your thoughtful answers and taking the time to just share some insight and share from your personal lives. You can also connect with our panelists on LinkedIn. Their contact info has been shared in our chat. Before I turn it back over to Somali, I just want to take a minute to check in with ourselves again and to think back to the feelings wheel and think about how you were feeling at the beginning of this panel today versus how you are feeling now. So this is just a personal reflection, but where are you right now on that wheel? Do you feel different? Do you feel similar? And why do you think this is where you are at in this moment? So I'm just gonna give you 3 seconds. Take a deep breath, think about where you are. And now I'm gonna pass it over to Somali.